The Public Safety Committee will come to order. We're very pleased when we have citizens participating. This time, City Manager, we will have, if you have any comments to make before we start with our agenda,
No, ma'am.
then what is the pleasure of the committee? Would you like to take the consent agenda first? If any of them you need to pull out, please let us know. It's been properly moved and second that we move this consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposers likewise. Thank you. Now, Madam Secretary, we will start with the regular agenda. Okay.
Item G1, Police Districts Update.
All right, Chief Cunningham, well, I have had many chiefs since I've been sitting here. I think I've done very well in keeping up with them. Now, Chief Roundtree, thank you. Yes.
Good evening, Chairman Burke and Public Safety Committee.
Good evening.
At the request of this committee, the police department was asked to bring forward a report on police facilities. So that's what I'm prepared to do here today. Just as a little background, the Public Safety Center was opened in 1984 to serve as headquarters for fire administration and police operations. When the Public Safety Center opened, it served about 300 sworn police officers. Presently, we have grown quite a bit. Currently, we have sworn officers operating out of the headquarters on a daily basis, 150 non-sworn personnel, and 20 fire department personnel that the building is currently serving. Because of the 24/7, 365-day-a-year operation, there have been some significant maintenance concerns with the Public Safety Center, mainly plumbing, electrical, and mechanical upgrades that are all needed at this time. In evaluating the facility's needs and the associated repair costs, we've done some studying and brainstorming to see what's the best course of action to take going forward. I believe that police districts or substations are the best course of action for the police department, mainly a city of our size. I do think that we do need that police districts and also so we can expand from our police headquarters. We determined that the districts will better serve the citizens and also our officers working every day. Some of the key benefits of having police districts, we'll have greater presence in the community where we can stabilize some of our areas that are a little fragile at this point. The police facilities will add stability to these areas. Also, it'll improve police community relations by having facilities in these areas. Also, it'll give our citizens an increased perception of safety in the community, and it'll also improve our response time in some of these areas. So officers aren't leaving headquarters, they're responding from the district offices. Also, it'll increase our overall effectiveness by reducing travel time, where we don't have to go back and forth from police headquarters to pick up reports, make copies, or either run information that we can't run from the police vehicle. Just comparing Winston-Salem to some of the cities that are close to our size, we've done some studies in years past when it was asked by council for us to go to different cities. This is one such police district in Raleigh, North Carolina. They do have 5 districts that they currently operate out of. Greensboro, they presently have 4 districts associated around the city. Also Durham, they have 5 district offices. And of course, Charlotte's not mentioned on here, but they have several police districts also that they operate out of. We envision having 3 districts located.
Roundtree, when you go back to the districts, would you tell us if we have it, you can bring it back, the population of those cities that you have talked about?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be glad to do so. We envision having 3 districts located strategically throughout the city. In addition, a fourth district to house our Special Operations Division would be beneficial also. I know that council is considering the SORT building that's on Polo Road now. I do think that that will be a suitable and a good location for our Special Operations Division. The benefits in locating our Special Operations Division in one location are similar to the advantages of having police districts for our regular patrol response. Some additional key benefits: it will provide us vehicle storage, especially for our specialty vehicles. We have motorcycles, our hazardous device vehicles, our rescue vehicles, and our SWAT vehicles. A lot of those vehicles, because of their functionality, they require to be kept indoors. Their value and their maintenance costs go up if they're left outside in the weather. Also, an improved information sharing for our Special Operations Division. Having all the units housed in one location, it allowed them to share information and talk about different crimes and events that are going on better. Our recommendations are to complete the build out of the Beta Center. Of course, you are aware that that second floor is available for expansion, and it will be used for police training and fire training. We would expand our evidence storage, and also we would like to have a forensic services laboratory where we can do different things in a lab to be more progressive as a police agency. Also develop 3 districts, plus again a standalone Special Operations Division location, and rehabilitate the Public Safety Center. Once the Public Safety Center is rehabbed, it would house the Police Administration and Fire Administration. It would house our Communications, our Records Division, and also the Criminal Investigations Division, and also have room for emergency management. If you do have this on a sheet that was passed out, you can read it a little bit better than what you see on the PowerPoint now. These are the present locations that we have police facilities, and also a few that have been discussed this evening at some of the proposed locations that we could use also. The circles that you see, those are the strategic locations where the police districts could be located. That would be about equal distance for each district where they'll be strategically located. Those are the circles that you see. Any questions?
Are there any questions concerning this matter? Yes,
Thank you.
Councilwoman Myrtle.
Thank you, Chairman Burke. Chief, tell me again, the green and purple, those are possible sites?
Yes, we identified some possible sites that would be strategically located in each district.
Okay.
So those are just possible sites where we could build or find property to serve as police districts.
So I guess it's more accurately possible areas,
Right.
so you'd get the full, so that's the 3 district coverage, is that right?
Right.
Okay.
The map that you see is our police districts. You have one that's kind of a light green, one is more of a beige, and one's a reddish brown color. In each district, you see a round circle.
Right.
Those round circles are the proposed location where we would recommend having the police district offices.
Okay, so the only one that has been identified under the new district office is the Lucia building on Walltown. Is that right?
Right. The Lucia building just happened to be in the circle that we think would be a good location to have a district office.
Okay. But we will do diligence on the other 2 sites to find a suitable location for district offices in those parts of the city. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Would you mention those areas so we can see them and people can hear them who may not be looking at them?
Yes, ma'am. The one district area for the western part of the city would be roughly around the Jonestown Road area. And the area for the northern district could possibly be in the University Parkway area. And of course,
Councilmember- Oh, pardon me, go ahead.
of course, the district for the southernmost part of the city will be around the Walltown Street area.
Councilmember Montgomery said he may have to leave. He does have to leave. Do you have any questions that you would like to have answered concerning this?
Not so specific questions about it, but just in terms of somebody looking at the map and looking at it, not specific about the districts, but all the dots that are close together in the center, may ask questions about why that appears that way. And one, in terms of just helping people understand what those current dots represent for us now.
Yes, sir. The red dots that you presently see on the map, those are locations where we have police facilities now and or possible sites that the city presently owns. I can go through each one if you would like me to.
No, but that's just because, again, some people may wonder why that's so centrally concentrated in that area. When it comes to the district offices themselves, I think that upon the chief's recommendation of looking at this is something I think that we should explore full ahead in terms of looking at how we can make it happen and overall looking at how that impact is going to have positive impact for making sure that we keep people safe in the city.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember Montgomery? Okay, Councilmember Taylor?
Comments.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief, for this presentation. Since I first sat down in this chair, I have long advocated for district police officers like other members who are here with us as well. I like your presentation. I think it makes perfectly good sense to decentralize from the Public Safety Center downtown for all of the reasons you have here, the improved community relations, the increased perception of safety in the community, the response times. I think it all makes sense. I think Councilmember Marshall mentioned Lucia building, the old Nissan Wagon Works building, which is one of the facilities we have identified for a police district office. There have been a couple of proposals that have been brought to this committee, Mr. City Manager, and we have a shovel-ready project in the Nissan Wagon Works Lucia building. Where are we with that proposal? Have we seen? I know we've got a developer in place, shovel-ready. Where are we today?
Thank you, Councilmember Taylor. It's my understanding we have been working with the owner of that property. We have approached the owner about the potential of a 5-year lease. We've also asked the owner about the potential of selling part of that facility, the part that we would need for a district. They are open to both concepts. I believe Mr. Turner, his plan is hopefully to bring something back to committee next month.
Okay, and I'm glad you mentioned that. The last time we talked about this in committee, I think the committee had some concerns about purchasing the building versus leasing. There was a 10-year lease that we discussed, and I think the committee wanted to see that lease reduced to roughly 5 years, a shorter-term lease. I've been in contact with the developer, and I have some numbers in front of me, and I know Mr. Turner has heard from the developers as well. So I would just ask that the staff continue to be diligent and vigilant about moving forward with this project. I believe that the committee and the council and the chief has found value in the district office concept, and even if we have to move forward as a pilot program while we're getting the other 2 districts in place, I think that's a good idea, and I'm all about moving forward on this subject.
And one thing that Chief Roundtree mentioned, when we look at the concentration of people in that particular area, you have quite a few new residents. And it's just like a different neighborhood. All of us are the same, but there's so many new people, and there are certain things that we have standards in this city that some are not familiar with. So we need to really get in and do more to let them know the Winston-Salem Police, what we stand for, what we expect our citizens to stand for. We train them before they develop too many bad habits that we don't appreciate. It's concentrated with a lot of new folks. Yes.
I have a question. I know there's several moving parts to this in that overall presentation, upfitting and finishing out the Beatty building and looking at buying or leasing. Do we have a price for the total? I guess before I would feel comfortable in saying, yeah, because when we commit to the Lucia building, we're basically committing to a district program, are we not?
Yes.
So do we know what that cost will be when we switch to that program? And again, we have two areas where we've identified the area, but not yet site-specific. And I know we started this back last month when there was conversation about leasing and owning and selling. So before I go off on this, how much is it going to cost?
I'll let Mr. Turner try to answer.
We don't have specific cost, as you indicated, because of the fact that we don't have specific sites identified for the other two areas. We have general ideas for how much we think a district ought to cost based upon what we are paying for fire stations what we have paid for fire stations in the past. And we feel that a station for a police district ought to be about the same price, but we don't have specific prices for specific locations as yet. We'd be happy to provide that to you when we come back next month as to what we think those sites should cost you.
I think for me, because it will go from here to finance, will it not?
It's gonna go to finance.
You know, I think this committee would want to look at it as well as far as a commitment in spending. So that would be very helpful for me.
We will be looking at this committee, the same when you talk about the public safety, the finances will come also through this committee. And we know it comes to the finance committee. Yes. Yes, Councilmember Montgomery?
In regards to the finance now, would that be prepared for the next month meeting where the other stuff was supposed to be brought up about the other site?
The intention is to bring you the financial information on the alternative sites as well as the alternative financing options or acquisition options, usage options, whatever you want to call it, for the Lucia site in September.
Okay, say that one more time for me.
The intention is to provide to you the information on the alternative areas, districts in the alternative areas, as well as options for the usage of the Lucia site at the September meeting. And we'll bring that to the Finance Committee and the Public Safety Committee.
Okay, so what we're talking about is going to come? Okay, gotcha.
Correct.
And while we are speaking, this is concerning the Beatty building. We've made a big investment in that building. And when you go down Patterson Avenue, I have reported this, starting with the top city manager. I reported it to the assistant. I don't know if I reported to Mr. Turner or not. But it does not look good. We have made an investment, and across the street, that old Thomasville, just full of grass. And you're talking about a building where people may even come to observe from out of town, and what they have to look at Northwest Boulevard and Patterson Avenue. They cleaned off that lot, and the half did that. The city went out there to do something with it, and the half did that like they should have done a better job. And I think it's just a disgrace, Chief, now that you're the chief, would you just please see if you can take care of that matter?
Yes, ma'am.
That it gets to look like it ought to look. When you drive in and walk, get out of your car, and you look around, right next to it, on the same side, it's a mess. Look right across the street, it's a mess. How much money did we spend on that building, Mr. City Manager?
I believe about $7 million, I think, total.
Yes, spending that kind of money and looking like you're in a substandard area. What is, a slum area, excuse me, that's right. And I think every house in that area, they aborted some of them. They need to be inspected again to decide if they're going to stay there, and make sure they are chronic people, that you give them notices on a regular basis. Thank you. And Chief, did you make an announcement today?
I did. Today, Captain Connie Southern was promoted to Assistant Chief,
And I thought that was good.
and she'll be over our Investigative Services Bureau.
Yes, this city, when we talk about the MWB and all of that, I'm very pleased that we're moving forward with making sure minorities and women are moving in positions, because we have capable people. And they have started, Assistant Chief Sutherland's been with us for 26 years. and she has done her job, and that makes us feel good. And we thank you for that recommendation and for that to become real. We're one of the few cities where we have an assistant city manager as a woman. Then we just finished recognizing Ms. Saunders. We had a woman head of the finance, and now we still have a woman. And we've had a strong finance chairman woman to carry things out. If somebody don't speak up for us, I'm mighty afraid somebody may not speak up for us. And when you have someone who will speak up and know that people are capable and able, we have a woman attorney running things. So you say who can get the job done? You have a woman city secretary. Who can get it done? We can. Thank you.
I'm ready to go.
He's just anxious to say something. What is it, Councilmember Taylor?
Well, men have the ability to get the job done too, Councilmember Burke. You know, we support all the women in service, and definitely municipal government. That's some excellent points. I just want to make one quick comment about the district offices before we move past it. Chief, Mr. City Manager, Mr. Turner, I would ask that we not slow the Lucia Leasing Wagon Works project down, waiting on information for the other projects. As I mentioned, several times, we've been holding this project for months. It's a shovel-ready project. Now, we have not identified what facilities will be in the other two circles, but we have projected numbers for this site, and we're ready to move. And I just ask that we don't retard the project when it is ready, willing, and able to move forward as soon as possible.
I'm sure the city manager hears that. Yes.
I apologize, Madam Chair, for missing half of this discussion. But I've communicated also with the chief that, again, the data says that the first district location, in order for it to be successful, it needs to be in the area that needs it the most. And the southeast area of town is that area. And I have no problem with that, even though we've been discussing this for a while. But just like the other cities that already have these districts, we're a little bit behind. We need to go ahead and move to it. We need to figure it out, and we need to make it happen. And it's just going to make that area of the city that much better. That's all.
Mr. City Manager, you have heard
Yes, ma'am.
comments coming from each council person, and you've heard the finance chair voice the concern about the finances. So we would appreciate that we move forward and with those comments and suggestions that's been given to you. Do you have any other questions you want to ask Chief Roundtree?
Thank you, Chief.
I can't answer one of your questions that you had earlier concerning the population and the agency size of the cities that I highlighted with district offices. Durham population, according to 2011 census, 233,252. They have 514 sworn officers. Greensboro, 273,425. They have 673 sworn police officers. And Raleigh, 416,468, 777 sworn police officers.
Thank you. Are there any other questions concerning this item? Yes.
It's not concerning this item, but I do have a question for the chief.
All right. You may ask.
Chief, what are you, 45 days in? Are you loving your job?
Yes, it's going good.
Good answer.
Good answer. Good answer.
It's been busy, but it really has been enjoyable.
Oh, good.
Very good. I was going to also mention, we had a very fine night out.
Yeah.
And the kickoff, I'm sorry, Councilman Montgomery left, was in Pecan Ridge. The turnout was great. That's one of our more diverse areas, how people are working together. Because when you look at this country, it says in order for people to be together, we must have housing where we stay together and we learn each other. So that's a very good area. And Ms. Bailey has done a very good job, the person. And Mr. Lideker, who's been the president for 6 years, is going out of office. He has been a very good head of the Neighborhood Watch Association. And so I commend the staff and I commend the neighbors for working together. Some of us had the opportunity to go to quite a few of them.
Thank you.
Yes, and I want to thank the person who assists me, Chris Mack, with making sure that I was started in Kernersville, and I was able to get to about 6 or 7 after Kernersville. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Any other comments? You don't have nothing to say?
I'm just delighted she's enjoying it, because we're certainly enjoying having him.
Thank you.
Say it louder so he can hear.
Chief, I'm delighted to know that you're enjoying it, because I can attest to the fact that we are enjoying having you as well.
Thank you.
That's a nice comment. Thank you. Thank you. Seems like you made a good choice. Any other questions concerning this? Thank you for your report. We wanted to stay like this all the time, don't you, Chief?
Oh, yes. I
Want
do.
all of us to be as happy. Thank you.
Right.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. All right, Madam.
Item G2, information on the community organizations active in disaster.
Mr. Page probably started with me a long time ago. We've been talking about this project, and it's been one that we need to give attention. And we have now Mr. Settler, who's going to work with this, and Councilmember Taylor would like for me to let him preside over this. You're very welcome to preside over this. Assistant Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Sadler?
Yes, sir. Good evening, council members and committee members. We want to speak just briefly, at your request, of course, to bring you up to date and to give you some additional information on the community organizations active in disaster. We last talked about this at the committee in 2011. There had been some development since then, and we've kind of reinvigorated the organization, and we are moving ahead now, and we kind of want to respond to your request by bringing our battle plan to you, our standard operating procedures. I won't read this whole slide to you, but this is just a refresher to remind you of the fact of just what COAD is. And of course, it is community organizations, both governmental and private businesses, and for-profit and not-for-profit organizations who want to work together, who are community stakeholders who are going to assist the citizens of the city and the county in the event of a disaster or an emergency. We've identified 6 major functional areas that are going to be involved in almost anything that occurs here in Forsyth County. And of course, not just here, but anywhere in the country. As a result of collaborating with some of our colleagues, we know that these generally are going to be the 6 areas that are going to demand attention. We're going to have a need, we're going to possibly have a need for mass care and shelter operations. We're going to have a need for clothing, certainly for food, recognizing that we're dealing with people who may or may not have been in a fragile mental state before the emergency. We may, or most likely will, require some emotional and spiritual support. We're also likely to have problems with have a need for management of donated goods, and we're going to have emergent volunteers to respond. And those people are the spontaneous responders who almost always will present themselves in the event of an emergency or a large emergency or disaster. The member agencies are varied. As I mentioned earlier, they're for-profit and non-profit. Their participation is voluntary. They will, however, have to sign a memorandum of understanding so that we know what the expectations are of that agency, as well as the agency knows what expectations are being placed upon them. They must provide us with a resource list, and they have to maintain current personnel contact information. In addition, each agency, although they will be members, they will maintain their autonomy, maintain control of their resources, and of course they need to have a willingness to participate in response and recovery operations. What that means is we need a commitment from them, not just for a couple of hours, but maybe for 6 months or a year or some extended period of time. So we want to set it up front to everybody, all the members and potential members, so that they recognize what our expectations are. We anticipate 2 different organizational structures based on what phase we're in the emergency. The time or the response immediately following the occurrence of a disaster is generally what we call the response phase. In that, we'll have an incident command. We've talked about it before because we are a NIMS compliant community. We will open the Emergency Operations Center, and most likely, in the Emergency Operations Center now, we will place the COAD coordinator. This is going to be an individual. We provided a seat now in the Emergency Operations Center for the COAD coordinator, which is kind of unusual because you don't generally find that, but we think that's the way that we want to move forward. And we'll have a direct liaison with a number of agencies who are going to be able to assist us. Now, and you'll see those 6 general areas that we just talked about displayed at the bottom of this chart. And the FLO means Functional Lead Organization, and we'll talk about what that means in just a moment. In the recovery phase of an operation, we may or may not still have an Emergency Operations Center, but we will activate what we call our Unmet Needs Committee. This is a part of COAD. And we'll talk a bit in a moment about what that actually means, and you see those same 6 functional lead organizations and those functions that we talked about a minute ago. So again, you realize and you recognize, of course, that those same 6 functions are what we expect or what we anticipate happening, and the needs that are going to have to be met on either case. Now, I talked about Unmet Needs Committee. That committee is going to be possibly tasked to do one of 2 things. If we have there's a threshold that has to be met when we have a disaster in terms of dollar loss. If we don't meet that threshold, we will not get a disaster declaration either from the state or from the federal government. So we're talking about smaller disasters or some large emergencies which don't meet that threshold. In that case, we don't have any money in our budget in the city of Winston-Salem or Forsyth County for emergency operations to go beyond what's normal. Therefore, the Unmet Needs Committee, which it does, I might add, is going to involve a number of philanthropic organizations in addition to the regular businesses and others, may be called upon to meet the needs that are going to become apparent in respect to what the citizens need in order to do what we always say that we're trying to do, and that is to return to normal. Our ultimate objective here for everybody in the event of a disaster is to return to normal. That's what everybody wants to do. It's the first thing that comes to everybody's mind. And if you ask anyone who is a victim, they'll tell you that the first thing they want to do, the thing that they want to do more than anything else is to return to normal. Therefore, our Unmet Needs Committee, along with others, is going to do everything that we can possibly do within our purview to make sure that those individuals do return to normal. Now, with a disaster declaration, things become a little different. Uninsured losses that are covered by a disaster declaration will be covered by, in most cases, federal or state government. However, there are going to be some unmet needs in those respects also. If you have your home restored to a livable condition and you have no furniture in that home, then you've still got an unmet need. In that event, we're going to contact our Unmet Needs Committee for consideration in terms of what factors we are going to be necessary to help them again to return to normal. Functional lead organizations are going to be determined by those 6 functions that we talked about a minute ago. For instance, American Red Cross is going to be our coordinator, our functional lead organization for mass care. They're set up to do that, and shelter, by the way, and that's what they're going to do. Now, that doesn't mean just a chapter here. We may have to go beyond the local chapter and go into the state resources, but point being, they will be most likely our lead organization. Conversely, Salvation Army may be our functional lead organization for food. They're set up to deliver food. They're set up to have on-site feeding sites, so they may be the individuals, or maybe the organization rather, that provide as the functional lead for food. And it'll change and vary according to what the situation is and what our needs are. We don't anticipate all 6 functions have to be fulfilled for every emergency, but possibility and potential is there, so we need to be prepared for that. In the operating procedures, you'll find 6 phases of emergency actions. I won't go through that and bore you to death, but the thing I wanted to point out was phase 0, as support of other communities. A few years ago, when Katrina struck New Orleans, some of you were probably on the board then, you remember that we were tasked as a potential site for about 200 people. I don't know whether you recall that or not. At the time, it was a request that came to us from the state, which actually came from the federal government, but it was filtered through the state. and we were requested to set up and respond and prepare for approximately 200 people. Guilford County was to get 300, and we were to get 200. Fortunately, that didn't occur as they had originally forecast, but point being that we did start gearing up and getting ready and pulling our resources together. We had no co-ed then, we were kind of freelancing at that time, but since that time, we have organized, we think, and we've gotten commitment from a number of community stakeholders who are going to be assisting us in the event of an off-site or an out-of-the-county occurrence. And this is, of course, no different from us having mutual aid with our emergency responders. We have sent emergency responders all over the state of North Carolina and, of course, in several other states. So we're talking generally about the same thing, we're talking about civilians as opposed to responders. And, of course, we're talking about other possibilities, including financial assistance. And the last thing I want to talk about quickly was after-action reviews. We are going to have an after-action review anytime that we're dispatched or sent out or called together. We're going to follow all activations with an after-action review. We're going to make sure that all the agencies who participated, as well as those who didn't participate, are going to be asked to send a representative, and we're going to share lessons learned. This is how we can put things together. This is how we learn. This is how we always improve our work, and this is how we do a better job than we did the first time, or whatever the previous experience was. We learn from those lessons, we share those lessons, and then we move forward based on the information that we've gained. Are there any questions?
Well, I'll say, Mr. Sadler, we appreciate your detailed presentation. This committee, the council members in this city, I'm sure are very excited and relieved, and they feel safe knowing that there is a plan in place. And when there's a plan in place, you know, there's a lot of first responders who come together. We've heard from our chief of police, and I just wanted to take a moment to recognize another group of first responders who help you day to day to do these type of things. Our chief of fire, Chief Farmer, is here with us as well. I serve on the emergency management committee with you, and I have to say to this committee and to this city, Winston-Salem is prepared in the event that there is a disaster or some type of emergency situation. Does the members of this committee or this council have any questions for Mr. Sadler? Councilmember Marshall.
I have a comment. Yesterday or Friday, maybe Thursday, NPR did a very interesting program. They were following up on Superstorm Sandy. And the little bit that I heard was from a librarian's perspective. And she was making the case that how critical it was to that community that their libraries were up and running in a short time. And I think the county really is the one that kind of oversees the disaster, and you know, her comments were they had space, they had electrical outlets so people could come in and charge their laptops, their iPads, their phones. They had clean restrooms, and they tended to have space, you know, and they were some of the first to come online. So I found it fascinating. Would just offer that to you for whatever reasons, because they do tend to be kind of scattered throughout our community. But I found that fascinating.
That's an awful good suggestion. I've always thought about the library as being a good place where I can read and get trained workers and who can pull out. Because at the time of a disaster, there's not a lot of people immediately who want to go to the library.
Exactly.
And those people could be a valuable resource in terms of having trained people who are accustomed to doing administrative work, who we think that we could use in the Emergency Operations Center and other places. But I certainly appreciate what you're saying, and we'll keep that in mind. But we're thinking of several sources like that, where, and of course the buildings themselves, if they're not damaged, would certainly serve as a respite for a number of people. One thing I failed to mention, the information you just saw is still in draft form. We've not put it out to all the members and potential members yet. So we're still in the stage of development. I'm sorry I didn't explain that when I mentioned it a minute ago, but this is a draft and not necessarily the final document.
Thank you. Excellent suggestion. Councilmember Burke.
Yes, what I have said on occasions when I was working with this with Mr. Page, and then I've been working with this with the city manager, along with people. With the Winston-Salem Police, there's a person, Assistant Chief Clayton, evidently is assigned to work with emergency matters.
Yeah, well, actually, there are two, Assistant Chief Clayton and Captain Weaver, depending on the situation.
Now, what I observed, and I think we need to have members and Councilmember Adams, I feel that we need to have, do we have the big picture if there is an emergency to take place? Do we have what the school system will be doing, what the hospitals will be doing, what our bigger businesses will be doing?
Yes, we do. We have that all incorporated in our big emergency operations plan. That's the big one that covers the city and the county. And what that does is lay out responsibilities that need to be covered, such as what we talked about a minute ago with 6 functional areas. We can anticipate the things that are going to be necessary to be handled, and we make assignments before the disaster in terms of who's going to handle what. For instance, the school system, some of the other places, school system is an excellent source for shelterings, for instance, as long as we get a middle school or a high school where they have showers. So there are a number of things that are already in place that it may not be readily apparent to everyone, but we've been talking about this and getting together and exercising with those things for quite a while.
Well, the school system is coming up with a new plan. They have not put their new plan. They may, at this time, may have done it, but a few months ago, we were meeting with them, and they were coming up with, Mr. Walker has another plan. Maybe one he's already had, adjusting it, amending it, or whatever. But then you also have the university. I know Winston-Salem State, every now and then, they stop and have a drill where it's like they are having an emergency. We have like Salem College, Wake Forest University.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. We work with all 4 of those institutions on a regular basis. In fact, the chief of the police department at Forsyth Tech is on the board with Councilmember Taylor. And so we get a chance to exchange a good deal of information. Next month, I can't remember what date it is, the Winston-Salem State and the School of Arts are having a joint exercise, a functional exercise, and I believe it's a shooter, if I'm not mistaken. But the point I'm trying to make is that we are constantly working with those institutions. Wake Forest is an excellent institution as far as committing to preparation, committing to exercise, and committing to training, as well as the other 4. And of course, the School of Arts, and as I said, Winston-Salem State will be rehearsing or exercising next month. So they do things on I think we work on a quarterly basis now, jointly.
And I've said to the city manager, we don't want to have a test. We don't want it to really happen. But what we want is for us to be ready. To be ready. It's a difference when people talk about things on paper and when they actually have to experience it.
Right.
And that's why I feel we should have as many practices to see where we're going. At one time, the schools would stop. Individual schools would have it. In fact, the whole school system, I think, coming out of emergency management, used to have little activities where the students would come out and have certain exercises that they would carry out.
We have from time to time, yes, ma'am.
So I don't think it's anything that we take lightly.
No, ma'am.
And the seriousness of this is real serious. And I go back to the time when Happy Hill, and there was another area off Country Club, I believe, Bethania, when they had the fire there. That was the one, I believe. And then when we had Happy Hill, actually, we were lost for a while there. And that was not it was big, but it was not like a big, and that's when I say we can be tested sometimes to see if we're really ready.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. We had, I believe, a church, some of the churches, and Reverend Mack jumped in to make sure people would have better places to sleep, those elderly people over there in Happy Hill, so it wouldn't be on some of those cots. I think they were not quite, and he carried them to, they went to a hotel. One thing, the former Chief Cunningham, we meet on a regular basis, the 2 chiefs and Mr. Settler, and one thing he had made was a recommendation that we would have like a hotel set up if we had to carry a lot of people.
Yes, ma'am, we would explore that, but we haven't really nailed anything down specifically at this point.
Yes, but what I would suggest, Mr. Vice Chair, and you sitting on that committee, we need to nail down, just in case some of these things, they need to be in writing. Because when there is a disaster, people get very excited and don't quite know where they're going or coming.
That's true.
I do appreciate that and having this opportunity to have you before us.
Thank you, Councilmember Burke. And one of my favorite things to say, if we stay ready, we don't have to get ready. And in this city, you know, if we stay ready, we won't have to get ready. Mr. Sadler, I'd ask that we look into the concept of the hotels.
Yes.
Also, I know another concern that came up was the school system. If they're developing some sort of plan with Mr. Walker, I imagine that you will be in the room or speaking with Mr. Walker very soon to make sure we're on the same page.
Yes, I believe that's a law enforcement exercise that they work, plan they're working on, but I'll find out specifically and let you know about that,
Well, we need to be informed so
Yes,
we
ma'am.
know what we're talking about.
certainly.
I gave an example to the city manager. I said, now, we cannot control when people go into hospitals, one man with a gun, they have a sign up there that says, no guns allowed. What do they do other than having that sign? Do they have a detector to know if a person carries a gun into the, I think the schools may have something that they use, but I don't even know if that's a fact.
I can't really answer that. I just simply don't know, but I will find out.
That's what we need to know.
Yes, ma'am. I'll
Because,
do that.
see, if things don't go right, no matter if it's the school, hospital, big churches with daycares, they're gonna blame the city. And they're gonna expect for our Winston-Salem Police Department and our fire people and you to do it all. Well, you can be there helping, but there must be a plan, as the councilmember said. We have to be ready. They have to be ready.
Yes, ma'am. We'll do everything we possibly can.
And Mr. Sadler, you may not have some of the answers to some of the questions today, but if you can just do a little bit of research and get that to us
I
at
certainly
your
will.
convenience, we'd appreciate it.
Certainly will.
Are there any other questions or concerns or comments for Mr. Sadler? Councilmember Mercer?
One comment. And I know that some of those are just so horrific that no one wants to think about them. But there are also those other natural disasters. The one 6 or 7, 8 years ago, ice, where this city was just iced over. We were beginning to look like Superman's planet. I mean, it was days and days.
Yeah.
Now, you have a program for that, emergency shelter, how to kind of seek, because as best I remember, we had one neighborhood that was a one-way in, one-way out.
Yes, ma'am.
And we had trees down there, and we had a person that had a heart condition. I mean, I think it would be nice to let the citizens know that we're not only prepared for the worst case, but we're also prepared for those cases that, that we're far more likely to have an active weather than an active something else.
Yes.
So I think that might be helpful, because I know you do.
Right, we know from our studies that probably the top two things that will occur here weather-wise will be the tornadoes or ice storms. So those are the things for which we set as priorities for preparation, as opposed to some of the other possibilities that we have in life.
Councilmember?
I knew you had.
I've been in communication with Mr. City Manager and Mr. Turner about how we have seen trees that we know would create problems when you have those ice storms, but there are things that we could have done to prevent some of that from happening. And so I think that we must be, Mr. Turner's department with the trees and these limbs, because when the ice and people are driving their cars, falling on top of cars, hurting people. So before it happens, we can even look at that. And I've mentioned about the not cleaning out the, what do I call those things when I'm talking to you, Mr. City Manager?
The storm drains?
The storm drains, we let them pile up. Well, when you let those pile up, that's what caused that flooding back in. And so there are things we can do to prevent it. And I don't like to hear it belongs to the state. It belongs to the state, but it's our citizens who come and go on those states. And sometimes, Mr. City Manager, I feel that the Public Works Department and Mr. Turner, when they have a little extra time, let them clean up a little bit some of those storm drains to prevent that. We thank you. I thank you.
Yeah.
And Mr. Sadler, as you said, it's got several letters on it called, and they form a word called draft. Before the word is draft is removed, I imagine we'll have a clear roadmap in place for how we move forward as a city with being prepared.
That's our intention.
Thank you, sir. I noticed, thank you, Mr. Sadler. There is one person signed up to speak. Any more questions, Mr. Sadler?
No, thank you.
All right, Mr. Ryan Nicholas. Mr. Nicholas?
Hey guys, thanks for having me here again. I guess we're all the same people, or almost all the same people. So I'm sure you guys remember me. Just as a refresher for anybody who is maybe different folks than that meeting, I came and spoke to the city council about something I experienced where I was arrested for something that wasn't even illegal. They didn't test it like I asked them to, put me in jail anyway, sent the test off to Raleigh, and I sat in jail for 8 months waiting on this test. This also happened because they blew in the door and raided the house for a cilantro plant in the window on the premise that it was a pot plant. And in the process of this raid, I got tackled to the ground. My face got injured pretty bad. Anyway, there was an article published in July 25th of the Journal about it, if you want to look at that at some point. But well, first of all, I wanted to say that Chief Roundtree was good enough to get me in touch with the Professional Standards Division, and that's great. So I'm waiting to hear back from a complaint form I filled out. And if not, then I'm happy to know now that you guys established the Citizens Police Review Board, which I think is wonderful. What I did want to address is just the fact that, well, first of all, things like this happen to folks a little more often than I think we might like to pretend they do. And, you know, maybe not my specific situation because that was very unique, but these things happen a lot. I spoke to dozens and dozens of people in jail, unfortunately, mostly African-American men, that experience these kinds of things that happen on a regular basis. And I just wanted to say that, you know, and I was thinking about with the chief's suggestion about enhancing and boosting up police presence around. I do believe in public safety. Public safety is not one-sided, though, and I think that for the kind of like these things that happen to people a lot, it builds up, it fuels this sort of rebellion in a powerful subculture of our society, and I think that it's very easy for you know, ardent proponents of everything government to say that people who have that kind of attitude, like, oh, more police, maybe there's a reason to be scared, would say, oh, well, you wouldn't say that unless you were doing something wrong. Well, I'm living proof that that's not true, and I think that you know, last time my choice to come was timed well with the compassionate city thing. I think this time it was also timed pretty well with the suggestion of enhancing police presence, because I think that it would be a really good idea. My proposal here is that we have something along the lines of, like, maybe some kind of advocacy group, or like a number that people know they can call. Like you know, having the police review board that you guys have is great, but it didn't do me any good while I was sitting in jail for 8 months. And so if there was like maybe a number that people could call, or something that was like, you know, posted in enough available spots for people to be aware of this, that if you experience, you know, injustice or dishonesty or some kind, or, you know, brutality or any kind of injustice at the hands of the police, then we as a city want you to know that we want to know about that, and that we want to have people to respond to that sort of thing. And it's entirely possible we might have to fish through, you know, exaggerated or unnecessary complaints, but I think that would be a very small price to pay for people to have the added comfort level of knowing that you know, I think that the lack of an outlet like that is a lot of what fuels that sort of subculture of rebellion that people have a lot of the time, and we don't want to fuel the divide socially, so I think that would be a good idea.
Well, Mr. Nicholas, let's back up for a quick second. If you'll give me your full name and address for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Ryan Nicholas, 3401 Old Vineyard Road, apartment G13.
And as to your comments, I believe everybody here at the Diaz, they heard you when you spoke at the public comment period. We all, every meeting, we get up and we say the Pledge of Allegiance. At the end of that pledge, it says, with liberty and justice for all. That's something that we believe in. There is a process in place, and as you mentioned, the chief of police, our new chief, Chief Roundtree, is taking you through the process, and there are people who you can call. This is a council manager form of government where the city manager runs the city, and he does a good and a fine job of doing that. There's a council in place. All of our numbers are public. What we want to do is make sure that everybody in this city is treated just and fair. And I'll say, you know, I apologize for your situation. I don't know what happened that day, but we're looking into it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure our police chief, I see him nodding his head, He will keep you updated as we move forward. City Hall is for everybody. You had the right to come and speak. We thank you for voicing your right and your concerns, and we will get to the bottom of the matter and get back to you as soon as possible. Councilmember Burke.
Yes, when Mr. Nichols spoke to me last month about this matter, I told him I was very sorry and that we would look into it. And he made one comment here that I think we need to listen to about, do we have another number that he could call that's in place just in case, because we know some situations are really legitimate situations, and about time it gets to one of us, maybe it's too late. He spent 8 months away. Our city manager, answer that, please.
Garrity.
Let me take a look at it with the police chief, and we do have several places where a citizen can file a complaint with professional standards that ultimately can go to the police review board, but I'm sure we could do more to advertise those options and the numbers to call so that citizens know sooner than later. So we'll report back to you.
I think that's very good, Mr. Mayor Speaker,
Please do.
where he said sooner than later, and that's what we're going to try to do.
Like people who are like stuck in jail, because once you get like, once the machine has you by the tail, I mean, it's like you have to like wait until you're processed out of it because once you're locked in that box, you can't do anything. And like you're out of touch with the world. There's not, I mean, like if there was a way that people knew, you know what, like it's really messed up that I'm in here and I wish I had somebody to say about it. Wait a minute, I saw that flyer on that phone call that said, if you're experiencing injustice at the hands of police, I can call this number, and I remember this number. I'm going to call that number from the jail phone, and something like that, because it's all well and good that we have these councils and everything, and that's great, and I'm glad to be able to speak here. But at the same time, you know what I'm saying? There's not necessarily something that's as accessible to people who are already caught up in the middle of the whole mess.
And Madam City Attorney, when Mr. Garrity and the police chief gets together to meet, I understand that there are some legalities that we'll have to look into. If you would be in the meeting as well,
right.
and you can get back to us and also get back to Mr. Nicholas and let everyone know how we're moving forward.
Okay. And Mr.
Councilmember
would be
Burke.
all right if the public safety attorney is there as well, along, since she, okay. Well, we thank,
Well, we thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments from Mr. Nicholas? Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Is there anything else for the good of the order? If not, we'll consider this public safety meeting adjourned.
thank you.